Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. My name is Garrett Davis. I'm a technical sales manager for American Colloid's Metal Casting Group, and I'll be hosting today's event. In a moment, our speakers, Darren Howard, who's North American Technical Sales, and Liam Miller, Technical Director of Specialty Sands Research and Development, will be presenting sodium versus calcium bentonite, which and why. Today's talk is the second of a multi-part series that will be covering throughout the remainder of the year. To minimize distraction, all microphones will remain muted. We ask that you direct your questions to the Q&A function. We will do our best to answer them all live today. So with that, we'll get started. And as a reminder, today's Tech Talk is being recorded for future use on MTI University, or MTI Academy, sorry.
Yeah, I would like to also wish everyone a good morning, and presentations like this don't come together without the work of scientists and engineers. So I would like to give proper credit where it is due to Garrett Davis and Liam Miller, as well as our whole R&D laboratory team. I am happy to help present this information they have put together, and it does fall nicely together considering how I began my career, which includes both extraction and processing at our mining plants nearly 28 years ago. So brief outline of what's going to be covered today: the origin of bentonites, the relationship between depth and material grade, also specifically ball clay, western bentonite, which is sodium bentonite, Panther Creek southern bentonite, which is calcium bentonite, blendings, benefits, and then which is for me. So many of you may have seen this slide. This is a review of the origin of bentonite. So clays can be broken down into two types: swelling or low swelling. Today, foundries use a hydrated aluminum silicate, having been originally discovered in Montmorillon, France, from which the active mineral in clay gets its name, Montmorillonite. Fast forward to the early 1900s out in Fort Benton, Wyoming, and this useful mineral was again discovered, giving us the name bentonite for ore that is mined. In a general sense, the mineral bentonite can be used in a variety of applications, but those properties most sought after in the modern day foundry are what we will be discussing today. So this is the kind of a map representing where our two major operations are at. As you can see, prevailing west winds carried volcanic ash into the shallow inland sea covering Montana, western South Dakota, Wyoming, and eastward from there. The ash falls were covered by additional sediments and subsequently altered to bentonite. What's important to note on this slide is that there is approximately 1,600 miles between the colony operations and our Sandy Ridge operation. This is a really cool map that we'll let play here. This map puts in motion the salt sea that covered the volcanic ash deposit in the upper Midwest and reflects a timeline of approximately 100 million years. So if you kind of look at North America up there, you can kind of see where that salt sea covers. Here is a clay bed map. It's a little busy on the right, but from the early days of bentonite mining in the 1920s, the clay spur, which is the C, and the Newcastle A beds have been extensively targeted because of their high viscosity and swelling properties, which is ideal for drilling muds and iron ore pelletizing. In the late 1980s, ACC developed other beds because of its unique benefits for foundry use, like low viscosity, low bond consumption, and high thermal durability. As you can see by the geologic formation and clay bed map, the process involved in clay extraction is much more involved than just scooping out a big pit. This is a good example of how selective the extraction process is, and each of these beds have different properties and applications. For a more in-depth review of what we just covered, feel free to reference our most recent Tech Talk titled Clay, Geology and Exploration, and it is located on MTI Academy. So here we're going to look at the relationship between depth and grade. As you can see, as you go deeper, you get less oxidation and a higher sodium clay. And as you go shallow towards the surface, you begin to get more oxidized and a higher calcium clay. If you look at the picture to the right, it's a really good illustration showing how the clay color changes as it progresses deeper. As you notice, it kind of moves from the high cal yellow into a more blue-gray clay to the right of the yellow clay, which is the higher sodium deposit. All right, let's move into specifically ball clay Western bentonite. It is the preferred binder for use in higher temperature environments such as iron and steel. Ball clay bonded sand mixtures offer high dry and hot compression strength to prevent sand erosion, cuts, washes, inclusions, burn-on, and scabs. Ball clay is best utilized in high temp environments where low clay content coupled with low temper water is desired to create a quality casting. Ball clay, while durable enough for iron and steel, provides enhanced flowability, leading to denser molds, enabling superior draw and lower burn-on. So some properties, key properties here that are listed, as you can see, is high wet tensile, high dry compression strength, relatively quick green development, low viscosity, increased thermal durability and toughness. The bullet points contained within this slide were taken directly from our tech data sheet for ball clay Western bentonite, and that can be found if you would like to access it on mtimetalcasting.com. All right, on the next couple of slides, we're going to be referring frequently to CEC. This is simply an indicator of clay available for bonding or cation exchange capacity. Some Western bentonite beds have high viscosity and free swell and are ideally suited for use in drilling and iron ore pelletizing. Other beds exhibit lower viscosity at comparable sodium contents, facilitating a rapid bond development and high thermal durability. As you can see, the blue triangles represented there are typically the clay that is used in the ball clay Western bentonite, and you can see the high concentration toward as you go up to the higher CEC value. Please note that particularly that the blue triangles are low viscosity clay, which makes it ideal for foundry use, incomparable to those green dots. And as we move through the next couple of more scientific slides, if Liam has anything to add, we're certainly gonna let him contribute to this. But a couple of other points. This is a good visual representation that not all bentonites are created equal. It also illustrates our selective extraction process that we go through to make sure the clays are being used in the appropriate application. This is not good clay versus bad clay per se. It's just making sure it ends up in the correct end use application. All right, here's another representation. As you can see on the graph, ball clay is mined from beds having the highest cation exchange capacity. The deeper unoxidized clays have higher sodium content and higher methylene blue cation exchange capacity than the shallower, more weathered clays. With all bentonites, the ratio of sodium to calcium influences the pH. High sodium to calcium ratios improve durability. And Liam will provide the scientific explanation on how we control sodium to stay within the green bands on the slide. This information is key because it does positively affect the clay consumption in the foundry.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Yeah, as Darren mentioned, you know, in the clay structure, it's a crystal structure, and these sodium and calcium, we call them exchangeable cations. They're positively charged cations that come and satisfy these charge imbalances in the crystal structure that occurs from substitutions in those layers. And really, sodium bentonite has both sodium and calcium exchangeable cations, and calcium bentonite has both sodium and calcium exchangeable cations. But the relationship to each other are really what moderates that behavior. And we know from extensive studies in mining at our Western plants that there's kind of a sweet spot, especially for foundry properties, as to how much of the total cation exchange capacity is occupied by sodium versus calcium. And again, as Darren mentioned, that ratio, if you have more sodium dominant or more calcium dominant, will really influence a lot of the behaviors. And we can use that to our advantage in the foundry industry.
All right, we're going to switch gears for a moment here and talk about Panther Creek calcium bentonite. It is important to note that calcium bentonites do occur in the West and sodium bentonites actually occur in the South. But as we just talked about, it is the sodium and calcium ratio that is the final determination of how to classify this clay. This is a very similar slide to what you saw earlier with the Western bentonite. You can kind of see that the deeper clay is less oxidized and a higher sodium content. And then again, on the shallow side, it's a different color, it's more yellow, and it's more oxidized. So Panther Creek calcium bentonite is the preferred binder for use in blended or low temperature environments, such as iron or non-ferrous applications. It is also a consistent, high quality, low swelling bentonite. Panther Creek at equal addition levels of moisture and mulling will provide improved green strength, lower hot strength, and improved shakeout. It is durable enough for iron, but provides enhanced flowability, leading to denser molds, enabling superior draw and lower burnout. So major properties are excellent shakeout, improved ramming characteristics, excellent flowability, of course, high green compression, and then low dry and hot compression. These bullet points were taken directly from the tech data sheet for Panther Creek calcium bentonite, and that can also be found on our website, mtimetalcasting.com, should you like to go and get further information. All right, in most cases, this is now we're going to talk about kind of blending the two and its benefits. In most cases, customer casting geometry or equipment limitations require that a foundry not utilize all aspects of one material versus the other, and instead use a blend of the two. This approach is very common in iron foundries across the United States and North America. Blending has been seen to impact the moisture demand, wet tensile strength, and green and dry compression. What we are doing here in summary, we are trying to capitalize on the properties best displayed by each clay type and find the ideal ratio for the foundry where it is being used. And if you kind of concentrate on the heavy black bar there, you'll see that the 80-20, 60-40, and 40-60 blends kind of create that sweet spot, if you will, for most of the foundries in the United States of America. And this is kind of a good visual representation of the two clays when you're running green compression strength and wet tensile strength, both at 100% concentrations. You can see how much higher the green compression strength is with the Panther Creek, and also how much higher it is on the wet tensile side with ball clay Western bentonite. Just a good example of the property differences when we look at them at 100%. So a little bit more information on blending. The impact of heat on ball clay and Panther Creek, as seen below, the type of clay provides, in most cases, the highest and lowest values. Based on laboratory testing, a blend of the two can provide an acceptable outcome. Your part quality should dictate which material you choose to have. This is a good example of how using a blend can positively affect the hot compression strength. The heavy black line delineates the clay ratio that is most common in North American foundries. And you can see that very clearly at your hot compression strength at 1650C and 1850C is very favorable when you use a blend of the two at the most commonly used ratios in the United States. All right, CEC retention under heat. This is a good example of using cation exchange capacity to illustrate the actual thermal durability between ball clay Western and Panther Creek calcium. As you can see, at 700 degrees Celsius, 38% of the CEC is retained versus virtually none on the calcium clay. Okay, it's a little more comparison here between ball clay and Panther Creek. This is a side-by-side comparison. There is nearly a 50% increase in the wet tensile of ball clay versus Panther Creek, and a 14% increase in green compression with the Panther Creek. Blending Panther Creek Southern 50% could increase moisture requirement per unit of clay. It will definitely increase ring compression, increase dry compression, decrease the wet tensile, and decrease the flat deformability. So now we're going to talk a little bit about clay and bond consumption. We've been talking a lot about CEC today, which is an indicator of clay available for bonding. An example would be comparing two different clays, clay A with a methylene blue dye uptake of 120 mils versus clay B with a methylene blue dye uptake of 105. The result is that we require more clay with clay B to achieve the same methylene blue clay target than with clay A, which is most of you in the foundry can certainly relate to that. Also viscosity. High viscosity requires more energy and time to temper, reducing or hindering the clay development. High viscosity reduces quality of clay coating on necessary surfaces. Poor clay coating may increase the bond per ton of metal poured. And then of course, thermal durability. Lower durability requires additional clay additions, thus increasing the bond per ton of metal poured. The thermal durability of bentonite can be a factor in rate of bond consumption. So sodium equals higher thermal durability, calcium equals lower thermal durability. Please note that sodium and calcium percentages dependent on foundry on process requirements. More thermally durable bentonite retains a higher percent of its original CEC at elevated temperatures. So for a tech talk dedicated solely to the subject of bond consumption, please refer to our past tech talk, which can be accessed on MTI Academy. There's also another tech talk titled Chemistry of Clay Activation that you may find useful. But the three key parameters listed here is really how American Colloid has designed the premier foundry clay. All right, which is best for me? So in a ferrous application like steel or iron, steel you would most commonly see 100% ball clay Western bentonite. And then as you saw in most iron shops in North America, you do see 100%, but most of the time a blend depending on the type of molding that's going on. And then in non-ferrous applications like brass and bronze, you would typically see less than 20% of ball clay. And a lot of times we see just 5 to 10% levels. And then in aluminum, typically it's a 100% Southern bentonite or Panther Creek Southern bentonite. But really finding the right blend is about getting to a happy medium to satisfy all jobs being ran at your foundry. You need enough strength and durability for large parts, but you also need to be able to shake out the smaller ones. And I think most everybody on the call can relate to that.